I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when I heard the mailbox slam shut. It was 6:07 a.m., a weird time for the mail, especially in Willow Creek, Minnesota, a sleepy town where nothing ever happened unless it was on schedule. I looked out my window, expecting a raccoon or a nosy neighbor. Instead, I found a baby, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, alone, crying. I froze. The ceramic mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. My heart hammered. I ran out the door barefoot, the frost biting my skin, and stared at the tiny bundle someone had tucked inside my metal mailbox like a letter they didn't know where else to send. I looked around. Empty street, no cars, no footprints in the snow except mine. The baby couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. His cheeks were flushed from the cold, his eyes wide, panicked but alert. A small note was pinned to his blanket. "His name is Charlie. Please give him the life I never could." That was the beginning of everything. I'm Lucas Monroe, 37, high school English teacher, divorced, quiet life. I don't smoke, don't drink much. My routine was the same every day. School, groceries, Netflix, sleep. Until Charlie showed up and tore my life apart, and rebuilt it in ways I never expected. I didn't call the police. I don't know why, maybe because of the note. Maybe because something about that baby made me feel needed, like he'd been sent to me on purpose. Instead, I wrapped him tighter in the blanket and brought him inside, hands shaking. He stopped crying the moment I held him close. I spent the rest of that morning Googling how to care for an infant. I hadn't held a baby since my niece was born 12 years ago. My ex-wife Natalie and I tried 4 kids for years, but nothing ever worked. Our last fight before the divorce ended with her saying, "You're just not meant to be a father, Lucas." Maybe she was right. But as I watched Charlie sleep on my chest, I couldn't imagine handing him over to some system that might not love him. That evening I called my sister Julia, who lived in Portland. "Hey, you're going to think I've lost my mind." She did. "Found a baby in your mailbox and didn't call the cops?" she said, her voice rising through the speakerphone. "I couldn't," I whispered, pacing the kitchen. "He looked like he belonged to me." She went silent for a second. "Lucas, that's not how babies work." "I know, but he has no one, Julia. Someone gave him up, left him like trash. I couldn't let the world do that to him again." There was a pause. Then, surprisingly, "All right, Dad, but you better get ready. This isn't just about bottles and diapers. It's about secrets and choices that never go away." I didn't understand what she meant then. A week passed. I bought Formula onesies, a crib from Facebook Marketplace. I learned how to swaddle, how to burp him, how to catch spit up midair like a superhero. And I fell in love with that baby. I couldn't go to work, so I called in and lied. Said I had a medical emergency. My principal didn't ask questions, but someone else did. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I noticed the same silver sedan pass by my house 3 times. Same slow crawl, same tinted windows. My gut twisted. By Friday, I found a note tucked under my windshield. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Give him back before it's too late." I stood in my driveway, heart pounding, note crumpled in my fist, and realized something terrifying. Someone was watching us, and they wanted Charlie, but I wasn't giving him up. Not now. Not ever. I didn't know who Charlie's mother was, or what kind of trouble she was running from. But I swore to myself that whatever she couldn't protect him from, I would. Even if it meant risking everything. Even if it meant uncovering the secrets buried beneath my own family's past. And trust me, there were secrets. The note stayed crumpled in my jacket pocket all night. I didn't sleep. Every sound outside made my skin crawl. The wind knocking against the window. The faint hum of a car passing in the dark. The baby monitor glowing dim green beside me. Like a warning light I didn't know how to shut off. Charlie stirred around 3 a.m., whimpering softly. I picked him up before he cried and held him against my chest, pacing slowly. "You're safe," I whispered. "I won't let anyone take you." I wanted to believe it, but the fear in my gut told a different story. The next morning I boarded up the mailbox. It felt symbolic, like closing the door on fate. If someone wanted Charlie back, they'd have to come through me. I was ready. Or so I thought. At 10:13 a.m., there was a knock at the door. Not the doorbell. A slow, deliberate knock. I peeked through the peephole and saw a woman. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Auburn hair, pulled into a loose ponytail. Worn black coat, pale face. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She held a small envelope in her left hand. I didn't open the door. "Who are you?" I said through the wood. Her eyes flinched. "My name's Rachel. I think you have my son." The world tilted beneath me. "His name is Charlie," she added. I didn't respond. She stepped closer to the door, her voice breaking. "Please, I don't want trouble. I just want to see him." I didn't know where else to go. I had no one. Still, I didn't open the door. "If you're his mother," I said slowly, "why did you leave him in my mailbox?" There was silence on the other side. Then she whispered, "Because it was safer than the alternative." And just like that, I let her in. Rachel sat on my couch, holding the envelope like a lifeline. She kept glancing at the hallway where Charlie slept in the borrowed nursery I'd created out of my old office. She didn't ask to see him yet. I respected that. Instead, she spoke in a voice so low, I had to lean in. "He's not mine. Not really. I mean, I gave birth to him, but he was never supposed to be mine." I stared at her, confused. "You're saying you were a surrogate?" She shook her head. "Not exactly. I was desperate. I owed people money. And someone offered me 50 grand to carry a baby and disappear." I froze. "They said I wouldn't have to raise him. Just give birth, hand him over. No questions." But when the time came, I ran. I didn't know what to say. She opened the envelope and slid it across the table. Inside was a single photograph. Rachel, pregnant, sitting in a hospital bed. Next to her stood a man in a suit. Mid-40s, sharp jawline, cold smile, hand resting a little too possessively on her shoulder. "There's your answer," she said bitterly. "That's the man who paid me to disappear. His name is Byron Harlow." I blinked. "Wait, Byron Harlow? The real estate developer?" She nodded. That name meant something. He was one of the richest men in Minnesota, known for owning half of downtown and 3/4 of the politicians. Why would a man like that want to? I had a baby. Rachel's lips trembled. "Because he couldn't have one with his wife. She's powerful too. They wanted a legacy. But they didn't want to adopt. They wanted it to be their secret." She leaned in, but when I learned what he really planned to do with the baby, I ran. I felt the air in the room shift. "What do you mean?" I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. "I think they're using babies to cover up something darker. I think Charlie was just the first." A chill ran through me. "What does that even mean?" I asked. She looked down. "I don't know all the details. I just overheard something. In a clinic. Byron talking to a doctor. About blood, compatibility, experimental treatment. I was supposed to be a vessel. That's the word he used. Vessel." She rubbed her temples. "I've been running ever since. I kept Charlie hidden for as long as I could. But they found me. I panicked. I left him here because I saw your house. I remembered your name." I froze again. "My name." She nodded. "You taught my cousin in high school. Said you were kind. Said you lived alone. I thought you'd protect him." My hands were trembling. "You need to go to the police." Rachel laughed bitterly. "They're on his payroll." I tried once. The next day, my landlord accidentally evicted me and my car went missing. I sat in stunned silence, and then I heard Charlie cry. Rachel stood slowly. "Please," she whispered. "Just let me see him one more time." I brought her to the nursery. Rachel knelt beside the crib, tears falling silently as Charlie reached out and wrapped his tiny fingers around hers. She didn't say much. I just held his hand and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "If anything happens to me, protect him. Promise me." I nodded. She handed me a flash drive. Everything I've gathered, emails, audio, names. She looked around like she'd already said too much. Then she walked out of the house and disappeared. That night, I opened the flash drive. And what I found shattered everything I thought I knew about Byron Harlow, about power, and about how far some people will go to create their own version of legacy. I didn't sleep that night. After Rachel left, I locked every door, checked every window twice, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at the flash drive like it was a bomb I didn't know how to disarm. I waited until Charlie was fast asleep. Then I clicked. The drive had one folder. It was labeled GH. Project Legacy. Inside, 43 audio files, 16 documents, 7 video clips, 1 scanned birth certificate, 1 folder titled Harvest Password Protected. I opened the birth certificate first. Baby name, Charles Monroe. Mother, Rachel Foster. Father, unknown. The place of birth, not a hospital. Private medical facility in Minneapolis, closed 3 months after Charlie was born. No doctors listed. I moved to the audio files. The first one was scratchy, a hidden mic, maybe in Rachel's purse. I recognized her voice, panicked, whispering into the phone. He said the baby's blood has the factor. Whatever that means, they didn't expect it. Said it could be worth millions. Talia, I think they're keeping files on the others. It's not just me. I clicked the second file. It was a man's voice, cold, precise. I recognized it from the photograph Rachel showed me. Byron Harlow. You don't ask questions, doctor. You extract the samples and deliver them. That's what we're paying you for. If she starts asking questions, we have protocols. You know that. I sat there, heart thudding, as clip after clip revealed a twisted reality. Babies being born to hand-picked surrogates. Some willingly, some not. But these babies weren't being adopted. They were being studied. Blood work, gene editing, compatibility trials. The documents were filled with medical jargon I didn't understand. Something about blood factor Q11, and phrases like subject viability and immunoadaptive tissue testing. Then I opened one of the video clips. A doctor, mid-50s, tired eyes, sitting in a dim room, speaking directly into the camera. This is Dr. Kevin Sloan. I'm recording this in case I disappear. They're using infants as part of an off-record biotech program. It's not just illegal. It's inhuman. They believe these children carry dormant markers, genetic traits they want to replicate. Or worse, harvest. I paused the video. Harvest. That password-protected folder. That word again. I had no idea what it truly meant, but the fear in that doctor's voice. It was real. The next morning, I emailed everything to my sister Julia in Portland. She was a tech analyst for a cybersecurity firm. She had access, connections, and more importantly, she believed me. At 7:41 a.m., she called me back. I hadn't even finished making my second cup of coffee. Lucas, what the hell did you just send me? I told her everything. She was silent for a while. Then she whispered, do you realize what you're holding? This isn't just a scandal. If this gets out, the wrong people find out you have it. She didn't finish her sentence. You need to vanish. Now. New phones. No credit cards. No digital trails. And for God's sake, get that baby somewhere safe. But where do I go? She was already typing. I'm finding you a place off-grid. Somewhere quiet. You need to disappear, Lucas. Today. By noon, I was packing bags. I didn't have much. Some clothes, cash, Charlie's things. I wrote a letter to my school, to my landlord, to my life in Willow Creek. Then I destroyed my phone and flushed the SIM card. Julia wired me a rental car, left cash at a Greyhound station locker, gave me coordinates to a cabin in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, owned by a retired hacker she once dated, who owed her a favor. And just before I left, I looked around the house one last time. The baby swing. The bookshelf I used as a crib. The kitchen where I learned to warm bottles and fall in love with someone who didn't speak words but changed my world. I'll bring you home one day, I whispered to the walls. Then I drove. We reached the cabin after midnight. Middle of the woods, no signal, no neighbors. Just trees and wind and a heavy sky. The man waiting inside was gruff, bearded, and barely spoke. He nodded once, showed me the fireplace and the radio, and then left. It was just Charlie and me again, but we weren't alone. The next morning I found something strange. On the back of Charlie's left shoulder, under the skin, was a tiny scar, barely visible, circular, like a healed injection site. I hadn't seen it before. My stomach turned. I remembered one of the medical documents, something called subdermal tag encoding, some kind of biotech ID used to track subjects. They had tagged him, whoever these people were. They could be tracking him now. That night, the radio crackled. It was supposed to be silent, just an emergency band. But at 2:11 a.m., it flared to life. To the man with the child. You can't run forever. Then static. I ran to Charlie's crib. He was still there, still breathing, still mine. But I knew then this wasn't over. Someone was coming. And I had one job left in this world. Keep Charlie safe, no matter the cost. I didn't sleep that night. Not after the radio. Not after seeing the scar on Charlie's shoulder. I sat in a chair beside his crib, a rifle across my lap, listening to the wind scrape against the windows of the cabin. By sunrise, I was done hiding. I turned on the laptop and stared at the password-protected folder. Harvest. Julia had tried cracking it remotely, but the encryption was military-grade. We needed someone who knew the system from the inside, someone who worked for Byron. And there was one name mentioned in the audio logs Rachel gave me, repeated 3 times, a whisper in the background of a recorded phone call. Nina, she's gone rogue. That was my only lead. I asked Julia to trace internal communications from Byron's clinic to any former staff named Nina. After a few hours, she found something. Nina Holt, registered nurse, mid-30s. Out. Disappeared from the system 18 months ago after a malpractice case was mysteriously dropped. But Julia found a P.O. box linked to an old gym membership and a utility bill in Duluth, Minnesota. It was a long shot. But Charlie and I packed the car again and drove south. We found her in a rundown trailer just off Route 61. She opened the door, holding a wrench like a weapon. Her dark curls were tied back, her eyes sharp and haunted. You're either lost or stupid, she said flatly. I have a baby, I replied. That made her pause. She squinted. You're Monroe. Lucas, I've heard about you. I stepped forward slowly, unzipping my coat to reveal Charlie and his carrier. This is Charlie. Rachel told me to find you. That was all it took. She pulled me inside, locked the door, and shoved a chair under the handle. You're in deep, she said, glancing out the window. If they're tracking you, you just brought hell to my doorstep. Nina wasn't just a nurse. She had been one of the original handlers inside Project Legacy, a term the Harlows used for their operation to develop genetically modified heirs. Not clones, not robots, just children bred with engineered DNA combinations to carry specific markers. There were 5 of us, Nina whispered. 5 women implanted with edited embryos. Rachel was the last one. She pulled out a folder from a false bottom in her cabinet. Inside were medical charts, DNA sequences, photographs of children who didn't make it. Charlie is the only one who survived. Naturally, she said. The others were either lost in complications or taken. I stared at her. Taken where? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled up a tablet. On it was an encrypted interface. I stole access to the Harvest files before I left, but I need a biometric key to open them, one that only the carriers can provide. Carriers, Charlie, she said grimly. His blood, his DNA, that's the key. I didn't like it, not one bit. The idea of using Charlie, even for a scan, made my stomach turn. But Nina reassured me. It's just a read. It's no pain, no needles, just a scan. But it might save his life. And a lot of others, so I agreed. We laid Charlie on a small mat, placed a biosensor against his foot, and watched the screen flicker to life. Access granted. Decryption in progress. What we saw next stole the air from my lungs. The folder contained the unfiltered truth, a list of 29 children born through legacy surrogacy, coordinates to remote facilities across North Dakota and Montana, detailed progress charts tracking each child's adaptability to blood transfusions, cell mutations, and empathy suppression algorithms. A memo titled Harvest Tier Initiation, Phase 2 explaining plans to transfer viable subjects into military-funded labs under shell organizations. And then, a live map, with Charlie's name blinking in red. His location had been pinged. They're coming, Nina whispered. No, I said, grabbing Charlie. We're leaving. But Nina stopped me. You can't keep running. They'll never stop. The only way to end this is to burn it down. All of it. I looked at her and I knew she was right. That night, we split up. Nina would go east with the data and get it to Julia. I'd take Charlie west off the map and hide. We shared burner phones, agreed on check-in times, and hugged like 2 people who knew the end might be closer than they hoped. Hey, you're not just saving him, Lucas, Nina said, holding Charlie's hand gently. You're saving every kid they plan to use. As I drove away into the dark Michigan woods again, headlights off, silence heavy, a black SUV passed me going the other direction, heading toward Nina. I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. The snow came fast. By dusk, it was coming down in thick sheets, the kind of storm that blanketed roads and buried secrets. Charlie slept in the back seat of the rental SUV, bundled in 3 layers, his tiny breath fogging the windows. I didn't know where we were exactly. Somewhere past Ironwood, Michigan, miles from anything. The last text from Nina had come 3 hours ago. They found me, I'm stalling. Keep moving, tell Julia. No response. I didn't know if that meant her line was jammed or something worse. And then, around 9:30 p.m., Charlie started crying. At first I thought it was hunger. But when I reached back to check on him, his skin was hot, burning. I pulled over, no signal. I checked his forehead, burning with fever. His eyes fluttered, unfocused. His lips slightly pale. No, no, no. I whispered, heart pounding. Not now, not here. I rifled through my bag, found the emergency thermometer. 104.7 degrees Fahrenheit. I knew what that meant. As a former teacher, I wasn't medically trained, but this was a red flag. Remembered reading that babies with experimental medical histories could crash fast during infections. I had no antibiotics, no clinic, just a snowstorm, a sick child, and a decision. I looked at the map. There was a ranger station, abandoned since 2011, 15 miles west. Julia once told me it had solar panels and a backup generator, maybe power, maybe warmth, maybe hope. I took the risk. We reached the station an hour later, tires barely holding on the icy road. The building was more wreckage than refuge. Half the roof was caved in, but the back office was dry. I wrapped Charlie in every spare blanket I had and lit a fire in the old stove. He whimpered in his sleep, cheeks flushed with heat. I rocked him, humming, praying. Please hang on, little man, please. That's when I saw it, in the corner of the dusty desk drawer. A med kit. Old, rusted, but intact. Inside, 4 fluid packets, alcohol swabs, and a vial of baby antibiotics. Expiration date 3 years ago? I hesitated. Then I remembered what Nina had said. Charlie's body. It's different. His immune system might not respond like a normal baby. That's why they wanted to study him. He needed something. Now, so I did it. I sanitized the vial, drew up the dose, and injected it into his tiny thigh using the sterile syringe from the kit. Then I held him and waited. Around 3 a.m. the fever broke. His tiny fists unclenched. His breathing slowed. The color returned to his lips, and I collapsed on the floor sobbing. But peace never lasts. At dawn I heard the hum of tires on snow. I peered through the cracked blinds. 2 black SUVs. No markings, no plates. Just quiet death creeping up the hill. I grabbed Charlie and the backpack, out the back door, into the trees. My boots crunched softly through the ice. I moved fast, weaving between pine trunks, cradling Charlie against my chest. Behind me I heard voices. Pale, cold, coordinated. Fan out. We need the boy alive. The man optional. They were trained. Not cops, not bounty hunters. Mercs. I ran for 2 hours, slipping, bleeding. Charlie wrapped inside my coat, his head against my chest. And then I fell, hard. An exposed root caught my boot, and I went down a frozen ravine, crashing into rocks and snow. My shoulder snapped. A hot electric pain surged down my arm. Charlie rolled a few feet, but didn't cry. Just stared at me, confused and cold. I crawled to him, pulled him back into my arms, and then I heard it. Boots close, a flashlight cutting through the trees. They'd found us. I pressed my body over Charlie, whispered into his hair, I love you. I'm sorry. Tried. Then gunfire. But not at us. The man coming through the trees stumbled backward, blood blooming across his chest, and collapsed. Another shot, a scream, then silence. I looked up and saw her. Rachel. Dirty, bleeding, a gun in her hand, eyes wild. Didn't I tell you? She said, panting. I always find my baby. She dropped beside me, helping me up, checking Charlie's pulse with trembling fingers. He's okay, she breathed. You did good. But they're not done. We have to go now. I stared at her in disbelief. How? I never stopped watching, she said. I've been hiding in plain sight, following the files, tracking Byron's goons. I knew this place was one of their check zones. I came prepared. We ran, together. Again, Rachel and I ran until our lungs gave out. We found shelter in an old hunter's cabin, deep in Black Hollow. A canyon near Lake Superior, no GPS dared map. The roof leaked. The floor creaked, but it was safe. For now. Charlie slept between us, bundled in furs we found in an old chest. Rachel held his hand while I wrapped my shoulder in gauze, wincing with every move. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, I asked, Why didn't you tell me you were alive? You vanished. She looked away. I couldn't trust myself, she whispered. After I dropped Charlie off, I spiraled. Guilt, fear, but I never stopped watching. I followed your emails to Julia. I tracked your move to the woods. I saw Nina help you. I felt anger boil up. You watched us run for our lives, Rachel, and said nothing? She didn't flinch. Because I knew how this ends. I had to prepare for it. I narrowed my eyes. What do you mean?
Hey.
She reached into her coat and pulled out a phone. A burner. She opened a video and showed me a live feed. Byron Harlow, standing in front of a black helicopter, suit pristine, smiling at the camera. To whoever's watching, come home, Rachel. You still owe me. Tic-tac. She closed the video. I made a deal with him 2 years ago, she whispered. I promised to return. When the boy's blood matured. When it reached compatibility, that was the plan all along. I stared at her. You mean, you knew all this time he'd come for Charlie? She nodded, ashamed. But I didn't know I'd love him. I didn't know I'd see myself in him. I didn't know. I'd want to fight. I stood up, rage burning through my veins. So what now, Rachel? You want to trade your life for his? Turn yourself in and hope they let us go. No, she said. I want to finish this. For good. We came up with a plan. A reckless, probably suicidal plan. There was a compound, hidden in the woods near the Minnesota border. Julia, who finally reached out again, confirmed it through a scrambled satellite ping. That was where the rest of Byron's experiments were being held. The others. The Harvest Children. Rachel and I would go in, disguised as a delivery team. She still had old credentials, enough to get us past the outer gate. I'd pose as medical transport. The goal wasn't just to save Charlie, it was to expose everything, to destroy Project Legacy. Julia had already uploaded the decrypted files to multiple encrypted vaults. All we needed to do was plug in one of Nina's virus-loaded USBs directly into their mainframe and pray. The night before the plan, Rachel asked to hold Charlie alone. I watched them from the porch through the cracked window, her hair messy, her hands shaking. Hey, little man, she whispered, rocking him gently. I never deserved to be your mother, but I'm going to make sure you get to live, really live, without shadows chasing you. She kissed his forehead, and I saw tears fall silently onto his blanket. We hit the compound just before dawn. The first guard barely looked at us. Rachel barked medical code words like muscle memory. I kept Charlie hidden beneath my coat in a portable sleep pod Nina left behind. We got in. Rachel guided us to the server room, down the old stairwells, past cryolabs and silent glass rooms filled with documents that looked too futuristic to belong on Earth. I plugged in the USB, and everything went to hell. Alarms, sirens, red lights flashing. The virus worked, but they knew we were there. Byron found us outside the data core, flanked by 2 guards. Calm, like he had been waiting. He looked at me, then Rachel, then finally Charlie. I should have taken him when I had the chance, he said, almost amused. But I have to say he looks healthy. He's strong. Perfect. He took a step closer, and Rachel stepped in front of him, raising her gun. I won't let you touch him. Byron sighed. Rachel, you were always dramatic. Then his eyes slid to me. And you, the teacher, the accidental hero. Did you really think love was enough to protect him? I held Charlie tighter. No, I said, but it's enough to destroy you. Then the explosion hit. Julia had activated the off-site detonation protocol, a fail-safe Nina installed months ago when she worked inside. The moment the virus uploaded, the compound's power grid began to self-destruct. Rachel turned to me. Go, take him, run. No, not without you. She smiled, tired, broken, but brave. I'll buy you time. She ran down the hall, firing shots, screaming, luring the guards away. I ran the opposite direction. I never saw her again. The compound collapsed into smoke and ash behind us. We escaped through a sewage tunnel, emerging in the woods, soaked and shaking. Helicopters circled above, not black, but blue. FBI. And Julia had done it. The files were public. Project Legacy was exposed. Byron Harlow was arrested 2 days later while trying to flee through Canada. Rachel's body was never found. A month later, I stood in front of a courtroom, holding Charlie in my arms, testifying to a sea of reporters, lawyers, and activists. We told the world everything. The children were rescued. The program was dismantled. And Charlie became a symbol of resilience, love, and survival. Now, 2 years later, we live in Oregon. I teach at a local community college. We keep a low profile, but we smile more. Charlie's for now. He likes peanut butter sandwiches and space documentaries. He tells people I'm his forever daddy. And I call him my miracle. Every night, we light a candle. For Nina, for Rachel. For every child who never got a voice. And every time Charlie asks, "Where's Mommy?" I tell him. She saved the world the day she saved you. Now it's your turn. You had to make the same choice. To risk everything for a child who wasn't born to you, but chosen by fate. Would you do it? Let me know in the comments, because sometimes the ones we never planned for come the ones we were born to love.